Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today's panel is so freaking exciting and incredibly powerful. So I want to introduce you to them. So we've got Nina Camille. She's a mentor, a mystic, and a community builder, and a dear friend and someone who I look up to a lot, look up to all these women. So it's very exciting to have you all. We've got Taj Savitri, priestess and business mentor. And then we've got Chelsey Jo, mentor, writer, and transformational artist. So the reason why I wanted to bring this crew, this posse here today on to talk about honoring death cycles in our business without losing our mind is because I have watched each single one of these amazing women do that and do it so gracefully within the messy, right? Because let's be real, it is a fucking shit show when we're going through it, but it's also so incredibly needed. And I think that, a big part of the learning curve as a woman leading a heart-led and a mystical business is the process of realizing, oh shit, it's not like, we all came in, I think, with a little bit of like, okay, we're just going to follow this thing and do this thing. And then we make money, right? And then we serve people and then all's well. And we may have even been preaching about cyclical living and all that stuff. But then when it comes to, oh shit, I have to let go of some key identities, some key programs, some key offerings in my business, that's when really I feel the rubber meets the road. And so I'm so excited to have you all here. I would love to start off this conversation by just having you each share, to the extent you feel comfortable, a little bit about either the most recent or the biggest, I would say, death process that you have gone through specifically in your business. And if someone feels inspired to go first, you can. I don't feel the need to call names.
I'll go.
Okay, thank you.
I laugh because Chelsey's always like, oh, there Tosh is again in the void. There she is in her death cycle, in her death process. And I feel like at this point, I'm like the queen of the underworld. And I actually like really, really recently have gone through a death cycle. I don't know if you saw that I ran a program called Moneymaker. And in the middle of it, I was just like, this was the last hurrah. This was it. And I was sitting at my altar and I was just like, really show me what it is. I'm willing to just give over any stories, thoughts, beliefs, anything around this like previous identity with like teaching business and making money and teaching about money. And I was really close. Like Moneymaker was actually really close to where it was that I was being invited to go, but it wasn't quite it. And it was really humbling to just scrap it right in the middle of the launch and people having signed up for it as well. And I'm actually going fully into shamanism and my healing work again. And it feels so right. And it's really fun and really exciting. And there's so much resistance around it and so many stories and so many clues a long time ago that was it. But, I think sometimes we get really stuck on, this is how I've always done things. This is how I've always supported myself. This has always been the way that I've stabilized. I think especially being women, we are in a world where it's very unstable. And I think so many of the women around me, I'm experiencing them like really want this like freedom and stability and safety. Like really that's it at the end of the day. And you know, so from my recent death, which was like a couple of days ago, it was a lot easier to just be with it. It was just a lot easier to be with it, because I think at that point I was just like, you know, I've been here before, and I know that if I keep resisting it, then it's going to feel hard and it's going to feel difficult, and I'm going to be in it a lot longer. And there was just this liberation that came over me a couple of days ago, where I was just like, I actually feel like I'm on the lighter path. It may not make sense to me, but it's the path of devotion. And this is where my work is needed. And I think the bigger question I was asking myself with the events going on in the world is, if today was my last day on earth, would I feel like I have done my deepest work, like the work that I'm actually here to do? And the answer was no. And that was such a humbling shift for me, that if tomorrow wasn't promised, what would I actually be doing today? Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm at.
What a great question for people. Mm.
Okay, Chelsey Jo's being shy today, so I'll go. Yeah, this was a fun question for me, and I loved that you invited me onto this panel, because I think that my relationship with my business is actually quite unique, and when it comes to most of the people that I run with in the coaching world and most of what I see, because I actually have run the same exact program for 7 years straight, like all the way through every single time, and never once had a failed launch. It's essentially been the same exact format for 7 years. And something started to wobble last year. And I was like, is it because I'm not supposed to live where I'm living? Is it because I'm in some like super trauma bonded relationship? Is it like, what's the thing? Because everything was really shaking. And so I wasn't quite sure what the pin was. And so, you know, I kind of uprooted all the other things. And I appreciate what you just said about the stability, Taj, because for me, like Experience Freedom, my business, I've treated it like a masculine partner, where like it was my partner and we cared for each other in this beautiful way. And I've always felt like I had a really, really healthy relationship with my business. And it also was the most consistent relationship I've had, like ever, with a masculine partner, you know, 7 years, like really showing up in devotion for each other. And that is the way that I related to it. Like it was its own energy and its own entity. And this year, I've still had to sit with my feelings around it, like starting to stir. And it became really clear in the middle of the year that I'm not meant to run that program anymore. And immediately it was like, wait, what? Like, I don't even know who I am without running Experience Freedom. Like, and then I was like, okay, that's a fucking problem, because like, this is just a thing that I do. It's not who I am at all. Who I am is, you know, this huge spectrum of being. And when we've devoted ourselves to something that's so important, like to our heart for that long, we become attached to it in these like particular ways. And so here I was feeling like I had this really perfectly healthy relationship with my business. And then when I went to think about letting it go, there was an identity death in there too. It was like, wow, this is who I am. This is my legacy. And I feel like one of the few lucky people where if I were to die tomorrow, I would actually feel perfectly good about what I did with my legacy. Like I have given almost every drop of energy I have for 7 years to this service. And I've been able to do that because I don't have children and I wasn't in a relationship. Like it was the only thing that I had to focus on other than caring for myself. And I loved it that deeply. And I'm in the middle of this now because, you know, like you said, Nadia, this isn't just the place where my service flows and like all of my heart's work goes. It's also brought in more than $1 million of revenue in 7 years. It's the thing that has truly taken care of me and supported my sometimes bougie lifestyle for a really long time. And now I'm still sitting here like this week actually is the week that I told myself like, okay, October 17th through 25th, you're going to be in the birthing process and the new thing's going to come. And now I'm like watching the end of that week approach and I'm like, where is it? And so I still don't know exactly what is going to come and replace that. And there's a part of me that wants to transition my life into more wife and mother role and not be working and devoting as much of my energy to service and business as I have been. And I still need to support myself. And so I'm like in the middle of it. I love that you were like, this is a few days ago for you, Taj, because I'm like, oh, cool. I'm still sitting here like, you got anything for me? What's next? How much journaling do I have to do before this new idea comes through? And I've never had to rebirth really ever since I have started, running group programs. And so it's interesting to let it go gracefully. And like you said, Taj, when you hear that voice, it just is undeniable. And I knew that I had an opportunity to let go of the thing before it gets really, really wonky. And so it hasn't like failed yet. But I know that if I were to force it to continue, things would not go well because it's just not in alignment anymore. And I'm like laying on my yoga mat and spirit's like, you're never teaching this program again. And I'm like, what? No, but okay. Because at this point I know not to argue with God. But yeah, it is scary and just hanging out in a lot of prayer over here that the thing will come through in the next 72 hours, preferably. And yeah, it takes devotion to something bigger to make it through those phases and to trust that something will come. And I'll probably be calling you Nadia because I know that you've been in extended spaces that feel like where I'm in right now. And many of you have. So, yeah.
I just want to share here too, like as both of you have shared so far, and I'm sure with Chelsey share, there'll be a lot of this as well. It's like I just want to honor all of you for the courage it takes, and a lot of other women who are doing similar things, right? Where we are both juggling the mystical oracle side of us, and then also not just the businesswoman, but a woman who needs to take care of herself in 2023. And it's always been either, okay, you just show up at your job and you work a certain amount and then you make a certain amount, right? Like it's like, or like you were saying, oh, this is the week I have planned to just come up with a new curriculum. I've been waiting for the new curriculum, my teacher training for 1.5 years now. And I'm like, can we hurry this shit up? Like, I have there's a deadline here. I got to make some money. And so for us to sit in that void of waiting and listening and really trusting that it's going to come when it comes, while also being in this place of having to take care of ourselves. And I think when we look at like other cultures or previous generations, it's always been one or the other. You either show up, you do your job, you make money, whether it's through a salary or just like, oh, I sell t-shirts, and if I show up for a week and work hard and make those t-shirts, then someone's going to buy them and then we're good. Or whether it's I am the mystic or the oracle or the intuitive in the village, in the family, and I'm not necessarily the person responsible for making money. And so I can lean on someone else and really trust my body to do the role that she has in the community, in the tribe, in the family. And yet here we are, and we've sort of have like 1 foot here, having to do it all. So I just wanted to recognize that for all of us and for all the other women who are walking that brave path, because that shit will fucking work you. Okay, that's all I have to say for the moment.
I love this conversation, like every piece of it so far. And I feel like I've been intimately connected with each of you in my own way into what's been weaving. So I love hearing even deeper layers of what's going on. I feel like I want to add something to what was just shared around like, hey, basically giving God a deadline for when the next program or offering or when you need to make money by. I feel like part of the death is allowing those parts of ourselves that are trying so hard to control or facilitate our own path or destiny have to also die in the process. And so even what I've learned through the continuous death that has also happened, I think, for all of us, is this like noticing where I think I'm shifting my energy in one direction, but I'm still bringing all of the same patterns or conditions or elements into that direction. I'm like, oh, now I'm doing this over here, but I'm still bringing some parts of me that were also being asked to die. And so I just want to offer that into the field. I think Taj knows this as well. It's like, we can't give God a deadline to be like, hey, this is when I need this. We can say, okay, I'm actually open to seeing whatever path the resources want to move through. And maybe it's not just this one, like, direction. And I think that's the gift of what our death brings to us, is it opens up, like when we really allow space for the death, it opens up these different pathways and resources and conversations like this, and just different things to start to facilitate for us. And yeah, it just takes a lot of surrender. So my death began about 2 years ago. It was maybe like 2.5 years ago. I started to really notice something happening in my life. I had reached like a pinnacle in my business. I was like, $1 million, this is happening. I'm making more money than I know what to do with. Everything's alive. I'm on fire, living my dream life in Kauai, epic community, meet my partner, fall in love. And it's just like, I could not have asked for anything more. I just felt like I was living heaven on earth. And I think that I didn't know that falling in love and coming into deep union would also facilitate a deep purification of anything that wasn't actually that level of love and connection to God. And so I started to fall in love, and simultaneously everything around me started to like decay. And my business stopped working, and I started to feel disconnected from my message, and I started to see things that I wasn't seeing before. I started to look at, I was like teaching so much, honestly, just so much regurgitated content. I had just taken on like so much from my own mentors and people that I loved, and I was like packaging it in another way, and I could not unsee. It was like everywhere I looked, I started to see it everywhere. And so the purification was really showing me within myself, and ultimately a lot within the industry, of just like what's true and what's here and what are we being called into. And so it got to the point where I just wanted to throw my phone at the wall every time I saw conversations on, about manifestation and money and sex magic and this, because it was like everything that I had stood for, everything that I was teaching, everything that I knew, everything that I was about, all of a sudden made me want to throw up. And I didn't know what to do with that. So it took me some time. I tried to hold on for dear life for a minute, or I was like, I'm going to I remember launching a mastermind that was just, I could feel that I wasn't supposed to. And that's the thing about continuing to facilitate programs. I bow to you, Nina, for listening to that, because I tried to keep going in something and I paid for it. The mastermind just didn't work out the way that I thought it like meant to. There was so much inside of it it was like screaming, no, don't do this. And so it was probably about just a year of really meeting myself in every last layer, corner, like, where am I? What's happening? I don't know who I'm supposed to be. Letting go of teaching about sexuality, about money, about all of this stuff, and really just like taking a step back and dissolving any and all identity. That was a really big thing for me as well, is like, where do I hold on to identity around this, even around being a coach or that, and just like sitting back and being like, who am I really? And it was one of the most intense times in my life. I think I remember feeling like Taj, where I was just like, does this shit ever end? Like, does this have an ending? Does this ever stop? Like, God, why do you keep pulling me through this? I thought that we were good. No, okay, we're still going. And I think that's the gift of death, is that it's just a continuous journey. But what I've learned through it is that whenever we're moving through death, there is also so much coming to life. And so I do feel the gift of recording and staying present with what is moving through you during that time. I love that Nina said, you know, I'm journaling and paying attention to like what's moving through, because it's important. You think that the death is just like destruction, but there's so much that's coming to life during that time. And so, yeah, I came to this point recently where I've like circled all the way back through what I would feel is this death portal around sexuality and money and pleasure and all these pieces. And I really came to something that I want to add in for anyone that's in the void. You know, you don't have to burn it all down. And I think that sometimes when we're in that phase, we're like, fuck it, burn it all to the ground, destroy everything. None of it matters. Like, we must start fresh. And there's a gift to that. And it can be very unsettling and unstabilizing and like, whoa, that's a lot. And so for someone that might be in that, what I've come all the way through on the other side is like, oh, I do love pleasure. I do love money and sexuality. And there's a reason why I was always attracted into that. There did need to be a purification, but now I really want to know what are my core teachings in that. And so what I always share with people when they're in that death cycle is, what is the message that you can bring forward that will stand the test of time beyond any death, beyond any transformation? It's like the core of who you are and why you are here. That's something that I think can really serve no matter how many times we die, because it's just, we're going to keep doing this. Like, we're going to keep dying. But there is something that exists in all of us that we know why we are here. That's what I got for that.
I love that, because I think that it's going to keep going piece is a really important aspect. And I think that part of the old paradigm, if we were to look at it visually, is that there's this, and we're still being sold this often, like a before and an after. And it's sort of, even in the like death cycle, I find myself, I still have to check myself going like, okay, when this is done, and it's like, it never ends, Nadia. You're going to be bleeding once a month. Like, this happens. She's going to keep going. There is this way that we think we're going to somehow make it through this moment and then get to this place where it's like, oh, heaven, now we're in the afterlife. And like you were saying, there's so much beauty and aliveness in the death process. And actually, it's so nuanced. And like, life is just going to be the aliveness and the death, the birth and the death, all at the same time, always till the end of time. But we came into a very masculine approach business world online that started off with a lot of that like bro marketing shit. And there was I remember 10 years ago or 30, I don't know, however long, when I first started, I was like a health coach, and it was like, we literally were taught how to write our story on the about page, right? It's like, okay, well, before, when I was sick and I had all these problems, and then I started drinking kale smoothies, and it's just like, it's just so, it sets us up for constantly feeling like we are failing. I think ultimately, and there is this piece that I'm still dismantling in myself, and I'm curious how it shows up for you, or if you've liberated yourself, and if so, please tell us how. From there's this little like voice that still nags at me that goes, and it's a very egoic part, right, that wants to control and hold on, that goes like, you can't keep going through another death cycle, like, it doesn't look good. Like and it doesn't look good to who? Like, where is that voice from? Oh, it's from that bro marketing. Like, it's got to be so clean and tidy, and it has to all fit into a beautiful about page where, you know, everything sucked until I met my partner. Everything sucked until I had those smoothies, or everything sucked until, you know, whatever, I discovered this new formula of how to make money. And it's like, it's just, life is going to suck sometimes. Like, that's just going to keep going. And I think it's so important for us as leaders, one, to be first working with this within ourselves, like, where is that program still running a little bit? And then being able to embody permission to allow everyone that we are guiding and mentoring to also be an allowance of the fact that it is never ending. It just keeps going, and there's nothing wrong with that. No one is failing at anything. In fact, you're doing it beautifully because that's the only way. So I'm curious, you know, I'm sure there's some thoughts around this in the group. So I'm just going to throw it out there.
I would love to share in response. I love that you said that, Ina, because, my death process, like there's like the bigger death process, and there's like the smaller ones under that umbrella, however they happen. It has been about like 2 years, and it started with my miscarriage. I think all of you have maybe seen me go through that process. And that was like the shift from maiden to mother. And that was a really, really, really long shift. And it felt messy. I was like, all right, we're back to money, business. No, we're doing like womb work. No, we're doing sexuality. No, and it was kind of all over the place. And I had that feeling too, where I was like, okay, people are witnessing me all over the place, not really landing on something. And I felt like I reflected on that, and I was like, well, what was the purpose of all of it? And I think that, like, if we're really truly working in this feminine way, we have to allow space for that messiness to happen and to occur, because ultimately that does get us to maybe the destination, the place that we're really yearning for, that we want to experience. And I think even within that, we're always going to be messy. And what I'm seeing for a lot of women is like that frustration of feeling like they need to be put together or super like messy, rather than just allowing themselves to be all of it at the same time, because that's full integration. We're always going to be bleeding, messy, wild, and then we're going to be in a different archetype at different times. And I think it's just, again, like you said, just dismantling all of those programs within ourselves that don't allow us to fully be in our feminine expression. But we have this whole perception, especially online, that people show up perfectly and they have it all together. Because again, we all know we're just getting the highlight reels, and I actually want to see people in their fucking mess now. Like, I want to see what's real. I personally want to live in a more honest and real way. I feel like a lot, my neighbor had actually told me a couple of days ago, because I sat in front of her fireplace just crying, telling her, like, I'm scared. I'm having a moment where I'm really scared. And she's like, good. At least you're living an honest way. At least you're being honest. There are a lot of people that are experiencing what you're experiencing. They're in fear. They're, having all these things going on, but they're hiding. They're not being honest with themselves. And when you can be honest, you can actually create genuine connection, which ultimately, I think people are looking for that intimacy within themselves and with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the people in our communities are, and just interested in coaching and in the wellness space as a whole, I think are really starting to get clear on what it is that they wanted all along. But it just, we all got a little sidetracked, and that's okay, right? We're just finding our way back. But that authenticity piece, I think, is showing up more and more, which is really exciting to me to see. Like, it feels so trustable. Yeah.
I love the conversation around authenticity. And as you were sharing, Taj, I was just like noticing all of the like subtle internalized like stories that we have around like what we can and cannot share, or how we'll be perceived, or what we're supposed to ask our audience and not ask. Like, a subtle one for me is I read somewhere probably a decade ago that like never like ask your audience what they want more of from you. And so I've been operating under this belief that like I cannot ever do market research again, because I've run the same program for this long, and like you only get to ask them one time. And like I just now noticed that I was carrying that for so many years, like a week ago. And I'm like, why did I just pick that up off the internet from some random person I didn't even pay to coach me? And I just like stuck it in there, and I've been carrying it around like my entire career. And it's so interesting the way that we almost like accidentally brand ourselves, like I just don't share things like that, or like that's not me. And, you know, I still see this with myself and also even with like my friends that I love so much, that like the person I know is not the person who is online. Like, it's just not. And there's also an interesting dance of like, what do we want to keep to ourselves? You know, when we're in that void, when we're in that process, like, I don't want to air out every single thing I'm going through in my life to 18,000 people every day. I don't. I want to have intimate conversations with the people who are closest with me and like have counsel. But just because I have a public presence or we have public online presences, it doesn't mean that people have a right to every single piece of our inner process. And it is an interesting dance of, can I remain authentic and still live a life that feels sacred to me? And I agree that like not everything sucks at the same time, usually. Even you, Nadia, you know, like when certain pieces were really hard, like there were other pieces of your life that were like really, really beautiful and thriving. And, you know, same with you, even what you're describing, Chelsey, when, you know, everything started to melt down, you were simultaneously experiencing this amazing love with this incredible human. And, you know, I'm noticing there are things that are like burning to the ground and melting and so painful, and so much beauty, not just in the death process, which contains beauty as well, but also in other facets of our life. And if those facets of our life aren't the places where we teach, then we think that we don't have a right to like illuminate those or speak on them. And we do have a huge range of experience every single day. And there is an interesting dance of like, are you being authentic versus are you unloading onto the internet? Like, I want to see people in their authenticity. And it's challenging to witness some people treat the internet like their therapist. You know, sometimes we don't get the clean reflection that we want in that space because it's so messy and murky. It's such a huge field of energy, and like there's an exchange happening there. So yeah, I really love the idea of like letting the one thing suck or the one thing burn down, while we're also noticing like what's really beautiful, what's important, what is alive, and what's like already sprouting, and what's naturally drawing our attention toward it, instead of burning the entire thing to the ground, which I'm glad that you mentioned that, Chelsey, because I have a huge tendency to do that too. Like if one thing's not working, I'm like, cool, just set it on fire, like the whole thing, fuck all of it. And that process, doing it that way, hasn't actually really served me. And I don't think that it serves us. There's the gold in there that we have to pick out. And sometimes we don't want to share when we're in the middle of like the harvest process, because we don't even know, like our hands and feet are dirty. And we're like, I don't even know what to say about this yet. And so yeah, I always find myself in that dance of like, do I have to wait until the lesson is completely buttoned up to like share about it? Or like, is there a lesson inside the lesson that I can find? And like, how much do I need to share in order to be considered authentic? Like all of these are really like personal questions. And I notice that like myself, at least, I'm constantly internalizing the things that other people say about how I should be doing that or not doing it. And it's like, we don't even notice, or at least sometimes I don't even notice how much I've picked up around like what I should and shouldn't be doing as a business owner or as a woman or as an online leader, and like just owning them as if they're my beliefs when often they're not. So you know, part of the identity process gets to be like, what's actually mine and what's actually true for me, and what would the world that I want to live in actually look like? And can I just do that? Which for me takes a tremendous amount of courage.
This is so fucking good. I love this conversation. Taj, both, yeah, just wow. This is so good. You're speaking to like the subtleties of the death process, essentially. And I'm with Taj and I'm with Nina in this dance of like, I want my people to like be on this journey with me and to know what I'm moving through and to like see that I'm a fucking messy human sometimes. And I've also really noticed my energy pull back like in this last year, where I'm like, holy shit, I have 20,000 people. And if I'm sharing something, they are now I have 20,000 projections and stories coming into that particular thing. And so I'm very clear with if I'm, let's say I have COVID or something, I don't publicly share that, because the last thing I want is 20,000 people now holding this story of she's sick, this is happening, and it's like expanding in the field. And I have to thank Oren for bringing that into my awareness, because I watched him get over COVID in an hour one time, just through like going completely into it and not telling. He was like, I don't want to tell, don't tell. We were at a retreat and he was like, just don't tell anybody. I'm going to go into the room and meditate and like move through this like fully. He had a really intense fever, moved through it, and he was like, fine. I was like, what the fuck? I was sick for 2 weeks. But yeah, there's nuances to this. And it's like, it is this dance of, I want to be authentic. I want to be real. I don't want to ever portray that like my life is fucking perfect, because it's just not. Everything you see, the great parts are all because I dig myself in the dirt and I'm in the mess and I'm in the death and I'm willing to move through the contraction of life. And I think that's important for everyone to know, is like everything that you see that is part of the highlight reel, that is part of the greatness, that is part of the expansion, comes from people willing to die over and over and over again into their own identities. And so whether you're getting like the behind the scenes or not, one thing that I do feel, and this is a personal decision for me, is like my inner community, like my inner council, as Nina shared, they're getting the full behind the scenes. And then my community, let's say then my clients might get like an even more in-depth story. Then my public community will get like snippets of, I'm moving through something, or this is happening. And I wouldn't say I've ever been like, I have to be completely healed through something, because I don't believe in that. But one thing that I really resonated with what Taj shared the other day on an Instagram story was like, I'm not going to come on and talk about the war that's happening if I'm not feeling stabilized in my nervous system. And I feel that to be true about if we're moving through an intensity in our life, like a wound or a trauma or something's really stirred up, and then it's like, I'm going to like bring this forward. But if I'm feeling unstabilized in my own nervous system, I'm then offering that as the seed that's moving through my collective channel, and it could be unstabilizing for other people. Right. And so I think it's important for us to remember that when we are in our own processes, there is a sacred responsibility of being willing to move with what, even through the death, we want to offer up as a sacred offering to ourselves, to our community, and to the world. And to the fucking tendrils that exist within any industry. And like, this has been a huge thing for me lately. Like, just a huge theme of my life is unhooking from the tendrils. I almost imagine like being in the Matrix in the movie and like unhooking from the Matrix, which is the coaching industry, and just any industry, any matrix that exists around who I should be and what I should be saying and who I should be in this and that, and like all of and it's like the layers that exist within that. Oren likes to say the coaching industry isn't real. Like, it's something that we've created, and so that we can literally obliterate whatever matrix we have around it. These thought forms of who we should be inside of it do not actually exist. But it is our responsibility. And I love what you said, Nina, because I'm doing that all day recently, where I'm like, whose voice was that? Where did that come from? Where am I moving from? Am I moving from the seat, the heart, the center of my soul and my truth and my voice? Or is this being filtered through somebody else's voice and, what I heard last week or a year ago or whatever it might have been around who I should be online? And I will never forget someone that I really looked up to being like, you should never share your mess or your vulnerability online. Like, your clients will not respect you. And so I was like, okay, but that just feels so not true. So I feel the dance of being really, first and foremost, it's like, I've been saying this lately. It's like my channel, what I'm sharing, my allegiance is to God and God only. It's not to my community. It's not this or that. Like, whatever I'm bringing forward is only to be a conversation between me and God. And then whatever else, however it's received or not, that's between me and God. And I think that that really helps to purify the field of like, is this okay or is this not okay? Nobody gets to decide that for you.
Yeah. So important. So good. Okay, I want to zoom out a little bit or a lot, let's see, but we're zooming out to the more collective death that's happening. Because what I started to notice is in the last few years, everyone kept saying, even just here, right, in our little circle, everyone seemed to be talking about the last year or two. So I started to look around and notice everyone is going through this. Okay, I'm going to take a break, or I'm pulling back, or maybe I'm stopping this program and I'm getting really quiet for a while because something's not feeling right. And the people who were doing that was everyone who I deemed intuitive and listening. I have, a little bias, but I watched that happen over and over again. And it has me feel that there is something happening that feels really fractal, right? Like in our own personal lives, in our own individual businesses, but there's something going on collectively in our little sphere, our little world of the coaching and wellness space and or online entrepreneurship that, we could zoom out even further and go into like the whole world, but let's not yet. Let's just talk about our bubble here, our coaching and wellness sphere. What do you feel? I guess it's a two-part question. Do you feel, one, that we are in this death cycle as an industry? And if so, what do you feel we're letting go of? And what are you hoping we're moving towards? I know authenticity has come up a lot, but yeah, let's just chew on that a little and see where we get to.
I have thoughts on this. I love this conversation, and I feel like, Nadia, you and I have been talking about this for like a year and a half, maybe, like almost since we met. And there's like two different things that I'm tracking. I think instead of calling it a death cycle in the coaching industry, I'm seeing it more as refinement. And I think that there is a huge wave of that death where we're like really seeing just how much was out of integrity. And again, you and I have talked about this a lot, is like lifestyle selling is really damaging. And the reality is, like, not everyone comes in with the same resources. Not everyone comes in with the same path. Not everyone is actually meant to have all of these things that are so glorified on the internet. And people are now buying a lifestyle, right? They're buying you as a brand. And that's problematic. And I think that after a handful of years, because our industry, even though there are billions of dollars floating around in it, is relatively new. I think right now it's starting to go through this like almost self-regulation process where we know that like if we continue the way that we are, something's going to implode and it's going to be really bad. And those of us who really deeply care about the coaching industry, and I'm one of those people, and I know that you are too, Nadia, like I love this industry and I know how much beauty is here. Like we know that we have to care for it in a new way, that we have to really look at these corners and edges and ask ourselves, like, where are we really helping and where are we creating like more separation and further damage, where we're selling a lifestyle that's not even appropriate for somebody to buy. Let alone accessible or like, yeah, not even healthy for them. And so there's a lot of refinement happening. And I'm watching that process as, in the beginning, I used to teach spirituality and that's what felt really true for me. And then I noticed that what people really needed was actually trauma healing. And so I kind of went like, and I went totally in a new direction of doing trauma healing work. And now I'm back to this place where I'm like, actually, I don't think I'm meant to do that. There's lots of people who are, and they're amazing at it. But I think I'm actually meant to go back to the thing that feels really true for me. And that feels more in integrity. The other thing that I'm noticing, like wide scale, is almost like a reassembling of the family unit. And a lot of what I'm seeing, or like a desire for the reassembly of the family unit, not quite there yet, that's for sure. I'm getting like a little ahead of ourselves, but I would like to see that. And I think that, Nadia, you mentioned this in the beginning of the conversation, where we were really birthed into this very masculine way of doing business, where a lot of it was like, insert your magic into this strategy and you'll become this like freedom-based lifestyle millionaire coach and and maybe that worked for some of us for a little while, but I'm watching over and over and over, at least for the feminine beings in this industry, that even if that's a fun game to play for a minute, we don't even like it after a while. Like, I don't give a shit about like making money or like winning or chasing anything like that. Just, I don't give a fuck about productivity anymore. Like, I just don't. And honestly, I really did for a while. I cared so much and it was so fun and it was like the best game ever. And now I'm like, I don't really want to play that game anymore. I don't like it. Like, I care about connection and like resting in my body. And I want to be in a different role of leadership and wisdom keeper. And I'm seeing that happen with almost every feminine being I know who played that game. And maybe they got burnt out or bored or whatever the result was. It just became not really true for us. And so I say reassembling of the family unit as like a really wide way of looking at that, because I think ultimately that's where we're going, is that we're realizing like the world does change in the home. And in order for us to like raise a new generation of beings that are going to care for the earth and be more connected to each other and the soil here, like we need good parents and mothers and people who are inside of the home. And so part of what I'm seeing shift in the coaching industry is that a lot of, I mean, it's dominated by women, just it is. A lot of those women are starting to ask themselves, like, do I even want to do this like this anymore? And so I'm really curious to see what shifts and what happens as like we evolve inside of it and change the way that we're offering our wisdom. Like, what does the coaching industry look like? I'm sure it'll stay the same in lots of pockets. And I believe that there will be another branch that is a lot more in tune with the conversations that we're having and the ways that we want to actually live and not just talk about how we live, like actually being it, you know, like Nadia, you're talking about like teaching cyclical living, like in a masculine structured container, like, okay. But really being that and carrying the vibration of it. And so, you know, just to like tie this in a bow, part of the idea around like reassembling the family unit, I believe, comes from the overexcitement and obsession there has been over the last 15, 20 years around spirituality and like the ascension, right? We want to go up. We want to go to God. We want to like take a bunch of psychedelics and be blasted into outer space. We were chasing this peak of experience. Everybody wants to go up through the crown. And the thing that happens is once you hang out there for long enough, you actually need to come back down the mountain, and you want to. And so we're like up here in the ethereal, you know, whatever. And then we're like, wait. The point was actually to be on earth and to be a person. Oh, okay, cool. I'm actually going to now descend back into my body and remember why I came into one in the first place, which includes me being a human being with other human beings and creatures on the planet with my feet in the dirt. And that to me is like the completion of like a bigger evolutionary cycle where we've gone up and now we're like, oh, we need to come back down.
Get it, Nina. That was fucking fire. Thank you, babe. Yeah, I want to pop off on that one because, and just deep reverence to you. Whatever you're birthing, it is already moving through you. I can feel it in the way that you're speaking and the wisdom that you hold. You're in it. Like, you're in it. Just want to reflect that to you, even if you don't have a form or a title. Like, you're the living embodiment of it in the way that I can feel your facilitation right now. And your oracle is clear. Your vision for humanity and for, you know, the coaching industry and for us as feminine leaders is so clear. And I really resonate with your share. You know, it does feel like at first it was like, whoa, death. but it's a refinement, and it's a refinement and purification of all these systems and things. And I was selling a lifestyle, you know, what you were speaking to, I was doing. Like, I was that person who was like, hey, I'm living in Kauai and I'm making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and like everybody can have this. But the truth is like, that's not fucking real. And it was damaging. You know, I'm like there has been repair that has had to come through with clients that I love, because I was selling something that was not real for some people. And what they actually did need was trauma healing, or, you know, something else in their life. And so that's been something that I've really had to be with and sit with and ask myself again, like, what do I really stand for? That's not just this piece. Like, I'm not just in a cookie cutter template of selling a lifestyle or this or that. And I have really appreciated seeing what I've seen across our community, which is like women, taking a step back and being like, all right, that was out of integrity. What do I actually want to be doing? And what do I want to say? And I do and have felt this massive ripple within the feminine collective. Every woman that I talk to is like, I don't want to be working as much. I'm feeling the call to home. I'm feeling the call to family. I'm feeling the call to union. I want to slow down. I don't care who it is. Like, every woman that I know, even if she's not in the industry, is having the same conversation with herself. It is like a collective sensation that's moving. And I feel like the pendulum swung in a direction where it was like, we can make our own money. It's amazing. We're independent. We can do it all. Oh my gosh. And then it was like, wow, there's this, it's like balancing itself right now, where it's like, yes, we can serve and we can make our own money. And I personally want to be a mom, and I don't want to be responsible for taking care of my entire life. I am really in this season where I'm, you know, Oren, my partner, and I are on this journey of like, I'm really stepping back and amplifying him. I'm descending and amplifying him and his mission and what he's doing. And it doesn't mean that I'm stopping, but I'm not the main part of the show anymore. And I think that that's important for us. That family that you're speaking to is, if we're representing something and we're actually here to leave this legacy, this mission, this message, like, what is it that we're representing? And if our message comes with, well, I'm an independent woman who's making all this money, but I'm single and I'm tired and my body is fucked up and I'm like healing all these things. And, you know, I know Taj and I both went through miscarriages. And I also know that both of those times we were both working a lot. And I cannot like take that out of my mind, that like that could have been, that might have not had to happen. Like, it doesn't faze me that I was in the middle of a huge launch when that happened. And I know so many women have their own story of that, you know? And so it's like, we cannot move forward anymore in the ways that we have been. There are consequences and we've been experiencing them. And it is our responsibility to say, actually, the most important thing is in my body, is in my family, is in my home, is in what I'm saying. Because this, as Nina said, it's like, it starts in the home. That's the message that we're sharing with the collective is, yes, we can have it all in a sense, but what does that actually mean for us? It means that we're honoring the body above all. We're honoring union, God, connection, family, community above all. So thank you, Nina, for bringing that in. Yeah.
A powerful story. And I think a lot of women who are listening are resonating with that in some shape or form, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Chelsey.
Yeah.
What's been coming through for me, I think the first thing that I want to just highlight, what I started to feel that was really off, was this learning of sales psychology and manipulation. it started to feel really, really wrong. And it's still happening. It's still happening. It happens in just the simple, subtle photo of someone's Louis Vuitton bag and Buy My Program. You don't even have to say anything about the bag. And it's this, like, feel it stirring in my body because it's made me so fucking angry before. Because I go into, what does feminine wealth actually mean? Like, if we're doing all of this personal development work, if we really care about the planet, yet we're selling this lifestyle and we're subtly selling these products and these cars and these huge houses, and we're not considering what when I'm spending these hundreds and thousands of dollars on coaches and mentors and their brands, just like any other business, like Kellogg's or Target or whatever, where is it actually ending up? Like, is it going to the factories that are, you know, creating these bags that are paying children 5 cents an hour? Like, I think about those things, and my work has always been in earth work. I mean, that's why I started my business, because I would literally sit at my altar. I'm like, please, I want to be rich so I can do like really good work in the world, you know, we'd be doing all these mantras and stuff. And then I think what happens is, if you haven't come from money and you start making all of this money, it starts feeding this hungry ghost. And you get hooked and you get caught up in that whole system without even realizing you're so far from home. You've just lost your way. And I started to see that. And I remember Chelsey at some point was like, what? You're leaving the coaching industry? I was like, yeah, I'm fucking leaving. Even if I'm not like leaving, I'm like gone. You know, I'm ejecting myself from it so I can find my way back home, so I can remember what my values are. And I think what happens when there's this hungry ghost or this trauma around money, or this, you know, desire to feel like a powerful woman, to, you know, this whole like feminist movement of like, I don't need no man, I can make all my own money, you know, like, yeah, all of that's valid and it serves, but I mean, we're having conversations here about like, I want to surrender to a man and like really be taken care of, and then do my beekeeping and take care of children and be a little abuela. Like, that's actually what brings me joy, instead of like always feeling like I need to be done up or to be perfect or to show that I've like bought the car, which I've done, you know, or I've bought the thing, which I've done. And it's just fed this hungry ghost instead of actually getting to the root of like, why did I actually want all of those things in the first place? And, you know, I'll say, similar to what you both have said, it's like, there's been a lot of damage that's been created from that. And I've had to have really hard conversations. I had one recently with a client that was like, that put me back 2 years. And I really want to voice that wasn't good for my nervous system. That wasn't good for me. And I think sometimes we have to realize that, like, when we are women of influence and we have the confidence to show ourselves online and speak, and like we've done the work to be confident in this way, there's actually a really great responsibility to lead by example, because there are still a lot of women out there that are trying to find their way to that and feel like the only avenue is through investing hundreds and thousands of dollars and buying all of these things. And that is what I call the shell of femininity. It's not coming from a place of softness. It's not coming from a place of being in deeper connection with source and to your own values. It's coming from this perception of what feminine power is, not the true sense of what it means to be powerful in your softness, be powerful in your gentle opening. So, you know, you guys know a little bit of my story. And so I went into beekeeping because I was like, this is so simple. It's so simple. It's so good for your nervous system. And it's taught me a lot about the nervous system. It's taught me a lot about like, why is nature like the thing that we reach to when we're struggling? Why is nature the thing that we go and give offerings to when we're holding prayers? Like, it's because it is showing us how to live life gentle. As we need something, it comes. whether it's a feather on the ground, whether it's, food that's growing, it's it's like the most organic feminine way to live. And I think that we're starting to feel really deep within our souls that the ways that we've been behaving as we come into deeper integrities. And I think like when I hear refinement, I hear a maturity. There's a maturing that's happening as we start to become wiser, as we shift out of maiden to mother, however that initiation occurs or happens. It could be love, it could be miscarriage, it could be, life circumstances. I think that there is this deep desire to come into more of that softness and that nurturing and like that deep trust, not like that false trust of like being held by life because you're making it happen. Because sorry, I'm like getting into the screen because the sun's starting to go, but like you're hustling to make it happen. You're hustling to create that safety. It's the learning how to regulate, learning how to find that deep space within yourself that can really just like open to life and trust that you're deserving. You don't need to be or do more. You don't need to buy more. You don't need to enroll in more programs in order to feel like you're deserving of life holding you and having your back.
Yeah.
And that is like I think what I'm noticing is what we're shifting into, which I think is one of the most incredible collective shifts that gets to happen for women right now. It is not, I am creating this safety. This person, my client is creating this safety and my stability and my regulation, or the sales or the successful launches or the car. It's because I am learning how to truly deeply trust life and repair my relationship with God and my relationship with prayer, that safety actually comes from my connection to Creator. And that's it at the end of the day. But then we stop reaching and we stop overachieving. We stop crushing our nervous systems, and we can actually come into that healthy polarity within ourselves and just collectively as well.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many good. I like this zooming out was so good because each one of you brought such beautiful layers to this whole conversation. And I know, Taj, you got to go, but I'm going to close out with the other two women. So thank you so much for being here and for your wisdom and for that final mic drop.
I'm so glad Taj brought that in, because it was something that I thought about earlier. I was like, what's like the main thing that's happening? It's like at the core, it's all coming back to God. So Taj, thank you for that. It's like everywhere we're looking right now is this, like everything that you can touch is like coming back into surrender with God, trust in life. And it's this like, no, you're not actually in control of your business and where your money's coming from. So Taj, bless you, babe. That is, I believe, one of the most important things. Like that is the deepest lesson I've learned in the death is, yeah,
I
God's
think
got
the last thing I'll say on that, like in relationship to death, it's like everything that is in resistance to allowing life to support you in that way. I think I know personally, I've gotten to some points where I've had to be on my knees and like I was forced to find that connection. And the way that I was held and the way that life showed up was through supportive partners or through sisters that were like, I'm there with you, like, or just the wind. It's just simple days where like I just needed the clearing from the wind. And it's, I think in relationship to what Nina said, it's bringing us back to fucking basics. Like away from all the fantasy, away from all of the stimulation. And like, I've even started to step away from psychedelics. I just want to feel home and safe in my body. And the further away I go through all of these external things, the less in control I feel, the less safe I feel. And I think there's something really important that we're learning around like, this is what my body feels like when it's safe. This is actually what home feels like. What are my values here? What's going on in here? And from there, I can make the best decision for myself, for my family, and for my community.
Thank you. Okay.
I love you.
Bye. So I want to speak to this a little bit as well, because all of your shares brought up so much. And then I have a closing question for us. So I also think, I want to drop into the space more permission, more allowance for all the chapters of the journey, because when we think about, the most standard classic universal story structure, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, there's always a period where we get distracted and we're like, oh, we were about to figure it out. And then it's like, oh no, let me go this other way and do this other thing before we realize our true destiny and we get to bring that back home. And I think part of that was necessary for us, the piece around financial liberation, the piece around feminism and being the independent woman needed to happen for us to then come back to such reverence around the basic matriarchal values that are so deeply nourishing and satisfying to us. The idea of wanting to be moms, because when we were trapped in that role and that was our only option, and we weren't doing it from a place of love, we were doing it from a place of duty, and this is all we had. I think even about just my mother, I was talking to her the other day, it's so hard to run your own business and whatever. And my mom's like, okay, just remember, like when I was your age, like I still couldn't get my own bank account without my husband, right? Like it wasn't that long ago that the most basic financial freedom piece was not even there for us. And so I think it's important to like weigh out both pieces and remember that, okay, we had to go through that the same way that you have to, date the emotionally avoidant man or do the thing where you like go off course a little bit to then be like, oh, okay, the king has arrived, right? Like you have to go through that in order to appreciate the other. And I think that that's where we're at with the seeded into mother energy that we're all having, this like slowing down, the sustainability, the appreciation of like going outside and gardening, beekeeping, doing the things that we all do that I think for a while was sort of like poo-pooed as like so ordinary, right? Like we're more luxe than that. And yeah, it just feels like an important piece to bring in. So before I ask the closing question for us today, I was just curious if there was any other like hanging threads there around this piece that
I want to say something.
Yeah. I had a feeling there was something.
I love what you just said. And I feel like one thing I've been learning about like what real abundance and prosperity and wealth feels like to me is space. Mm. And so, when you think about beekeeping or tending to the garden or even having time to spend with your friends, it's such an interesting feeling that I have in today's, in this moment right now. It feels like everybody is so fucking busy. Like everybody's so busy, and wealth, like true wealth that I think we're stepping into feels like space to beekeep, space to tend to the garden, space to have with your friends, space to like be in the presence of your life. And I think that what's, closing within that conversation of like what we were selling or what that lifestyle included was like, there wasn't like, if I'm honest, there wasn't a lot of space in my system. And I think that space feels really beautiful to have these very basic, ordinary moments. It's like, oh, I'm right here to have this right now, to be present in this. So thank you for that. All right, what's the closing question, Nadia? I'm so curious. You have the best questions.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wanted to invite each of you in closing to just bring a prayer into the space, along with what I'm calling a prescription, which is essentially just a call to action, a takeaway, something that people who have been listening and watching can now take and implement on a behavioral level, be them service providers or whether they are people who are looking to hire their next coach, right? So in either position. But yeah, so a prayer and a prescription.
You want them like together?
I mean, you can say one and then the other.
Yeah, they feel like very interwoven for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that invitation. It feels, I don't know why this, maybe because it's Scorpio season, but like spell casting almost. Like, can we imprint the field of energy with something that is at a higher vibration than what might be sifting around in the space right now? And I'm just really appreciating the like, let's clean it up a little bit tone of this conversation, that like holds us all in this place of reverence and care for what we've created and where we're going and what's possible in this industry, which I think is really important. It's a departure from some of the like coach bashing and canceling that we've seen, and like that's not the way either. So yeah, my prayer for all of us would be that we remember how to listen and how to really turn inward and make choices that are in integrity with what we hear, to slow down and get quiet enough to let that guide come from within first, whether we are going to go out and lead or choose someone to guide and lead us, that the grab and the distraction that's already imprinted in our system starts to slowly dissolve out. And we can really create that spaciousness even in small moments throughout the day, so that we can soften and listen to the inner voice and be guided by that, because that's the thing that will never take us astray. And that we really make decisions and choices and act from a place of what is in the highest good for all beings everywhere, and that we're casting a wider net and understanding the larger implications of the choices that we make, and really just have a devotion to acting in integrity with truth, with love, with harmony, with community, and being in the inquiry of what that actually means in the physical and our choice making. And I think that's really it. If we come from that place of what is in the highest good for all beings everywhere, and we run our choices through that filter, I know that we can trust that where we're going will be beautiful and will cause more good and harmony than damage.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. I love this. I love this ask prayer and a prescription. This is like so good. Yeah, I feel a prescription would be for any and all women who have been serving in the industry and who feel a little bit paralyzed right now in like how to move and where to move and what to do. I noticed that there's in the pause and in the refinement and in all of these conversations that have been happening, I can sense, and I've seen so many women paralyzed in their own greatness of where they're actually being called into. And I would offer that you can still shake and be a little afraid and still move with the wisdom that you're holding in the field. And if you're really allowing yourself again to be in this direct service to God and to the higher truth of what's wanting to move through, then dissolve any fear around getting it wrong. Obviously, we fucked it up a little bit and we ruptured and we're in repair. And so there is a gift in going down the wrong path so that we have to do that. As you said, Nadia, I loved that analogy. We have to know where we're not going so that we can see the path so clearly in the direction that we're being called. And so my prescription is for any women who feel like they're a little bit paralyzed, maybe moving through some shame or guilt in what they have done and where they have gone. I know for me, I felt like so much guilt and shame that I almost couldn't even find my voice for a minute. And that wasn't actually serving anyone. And there is underneath all the layers of whatever has taken place, there's a reason why we started this in the first place. There's a reason why we chose to step right into the fire, and we have to come back to that over and over and over again. Why are you here to serve? Where are you being called? Where is God directing you now? Whatever has been refined and purified is absolutely the momentum forward. It is not meant to paralyze you. It is meant to catapult you into where you're going. And yeah, just like have a lot of compassion and love for yourself. It's for me. It's for me, for everyone. Yeah, my prayer. May we see ourselves through the eyes of God always. May we remove and clear any distraction, distortion, illusion, confusion in the field. And may our voices cut through with the truth of what is meant for all of us. May we plug into the roots of the earth and connect to her nervous system and her cycles and her ways. And may we trust ourselves so deeply through every cycle of life and death, because we are in trust with God. May we move with the message that we know is ours. And may we love each other fully as we guide each other home continuously over and over and over and over again. Thank you. Amen.
So it is. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a rich and illuminating conversation. For everyone that's watching and listening, above, below, to the side, somewhere, there are bios you can click through. If you don't already follow the work of these amazing women, you now know where to do that. They obviously have super heart-aligned content that goes out all the time. So get on there. Okay. Thank you all so much.